No further ado, let's get into it. If you need your assets protected financially, this is the man to call. If you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, this is the man you're going to want to hate. At the end of the day, he's my cousin. I'm going to claim him in time and every time we meet. Ladies and gentlemen, Ross Alexander. Ross, how you doing, cuz?
Good, man. How you doing?
Man, producer James just screwed up and didn't even clap whenever I was like bringing you in.
Whenever we do that, my hands are.
All right.
Your hands are quick as lightning. That's all I know. Bringing us back from break. No, producer James does good. Ross, cuz, how's it going, man? What's that shirt you're wearing? What is that?
Oh man, this is I used to back in probably about 8 years ago. I used to coach CrossFit
Okay.
over in West Texas, right in between Lubbock and Midland. And Murph is a WOD that during Memorial Day that pretty much every boxer across the country does. It was a man, his last name was Murphy. There was a movie actually made about him, or not him personally, but about his crew. And he saved a bunch of other Navy SEALs.
Oh, wow.
He sacrificed himself to get radio transmission so that help from the Americans had come during the mid 2000s. And he took shots, sacrificed his life on top of, I guess, like a plateau. And he was able to get transmissions. The bad guys were bombed, and the other Navy SEAls were captured, or were saved. I apologize, were saved.
Yeah.
He was actually a very athletic man. But he knew it was a one-way ticket when he went to put that radio transmission up on top of that plateau.
Man, shout out to Murphy, man. Shout out to Murphy. Thank you very much. I mean, he made the ultimate sacrifice. Man, and for them y'all to pay like respect to him, everybody does that annually across the country?
Yeah, annually, man.
Wow.
It's got to be one of the toughest workouts you can do. You have an hour to run a mile. Then after that mile, you have to conduct 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats, and then run another mile. And you have an hour to complete that.
Have you ever done it?
Yeah, I completely. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing CrossFit, I did it every year. Of course, man, I can't think about doing that right now.
Yeah,
I'm not in
neither.
CrossFit shape. That's a whole different animal. But it's one of those things, man. A little bit of sacrifice for you.
I've never been a guy who's going to be able to do CrossFit. I'm just going to put that out there real quick. But
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, man. I didn't, the things I was actually capable of doing at 260 pounds, like got there, was this. I never thought I could do that. So it's very deceiving. CrossFit is not only about what you see on TV on ESPN during the games. I mean, it could be as little as teaching somebody how to get down in a proper squat, or how to, who has an injured shoulder, and how to get their full range of motion back. So it's a really cool concept. I know people hate on it. I'm a former football player and power lifter, and I'll be honest, I vouch for it.
Now, Ross, I need to know, and you need to enlighten me, because I've known you long enough, and I remember, when social media became big, and tell me and tell the people, maybe because I've wanted to know, and I knew I was going to ask you this question. How the hell did you become a Philadelphia Eagle fan? How did that? How does that happen in Texas and in Central Texas?
You know what, man? I'll be, a few different factors. Of course, my dad was a big fan, and my brother's a fan of the Cowboys. And, during that time, everybody was just always about Aikman and Irvin and Smith. And, I've always liked to be a little different. So, I mean, when I was little, I really didn't have a team. But I'll tell you, one player who I loved to watch was Randall Cunningham growing up. And he just happened to play for the Eagles. But that was one time I never knew what he was going to do. If he was going to punt the ball, if he was going to go out for a pass, if he was just going to, give everybody some jelly and take it to the house. But he was so fun to watch. And then that love for the team grew when I was in college, and they drafted Donovan McNabb. What's wild is, like, I just happened to catch McNabb one Saturday, like on TV when he played for Syracuse. And man, I really like this dude. And, then the Eagles, us being defensive guys, people don't know me and you played next to each other.
Right.
And for 2 years in high school, it is a 3 technique and a nose guard. And so, of course, we're defensive guys. And during that time, that front seven was just monstrous in the mid 2000s. You remember that? 4 trips to AFC Championship. They finally got 1 trip to the Super Bowl, and unfortunately, the GOAT took them out with Tom Brady. But
Yeah.
it just started, man. Like one of the, like I said, man, start off with a player that I really loved to watch, and that was fun to watch, and it just kind of grew from there.
So you mentioned McNabb, and everybody understands the drama between him and T.O. Are you team T.O. or are you team McNabb when it comes to those two guys and their beef while their time in Philadelphia?
Man, I've never been much of being a prima donna, man. I think I think when you're a prima donna, that's a very selfish aspect to have, and you're taking a lot away from people that work hard, and I will tell you this, though. I will tell you this. I'm a Donovan McNabb fan. I'm also a T.O. fan in different aspects. I'm a T.O. fan because I respect the man's grind. Even nowadays, man, I just watched a video this summer. This dude was literally outran a few collegiate pro athletes. The dude looks like he hasn't aged in 20 something years. And I will say during the Super Bowl, that's the one thing, man. I like Donovan because on paper, he's great. You could tell he's a good human being. But, man, when it came really down to the big games, man, Donovan was just.
Yeah, man, that's kind of how it really looked a lot of times. Even when there was a time I remember when he played the Cowboys and he had Dallas dead to rights, and somehow, some way, it was on Monday Night Football. Dallas came back. I stayed up late to watch it, and in the end, he did choke in that game, and unfortunately, that's how it did kind of last for a lot of those teams. But the Eagles were very talented in the 2000s for sure. And I was just kind of curious. I really wanted to learn that from you just directly because I've never really understood it. And I love seeing your banter online with all your Cowboys cousins and friends all over the football season.
Oh man, they know me, man. They're gonna come at me.
Oh, they're hunting you for sure. Yeah, and the good thing about it is whenever the Cowboys do as they do and play mediocrely or playing mediocre ball, you come hunting for them. That's the good thing. And that's what I love to see about. Let me hear them Cowboys talk. I don't know if you know, but I've labeled a lot of the Dallas Cowboy fans DC4L zombies. That's what I like to call them because it doesn't matter. And I'm a Cowboys fan through and through. Don't get me wrong, but at least I'm objective enough to understand that if they don't play well, I'm going to identify why they didn't play well, and I'm going to go ahead and blame the right people. And usually I end up blaming Jerry Jones because he's the guy who's going to make sign the check at the end of the day.
I really I think being a Cowboys fan has made a lot of fans almost have to hold yourselves accountable, right? Like,
well, you should as a fan.
On paper, man, y'all have it almost every year on paper.
Hey man, but there's a reason why it's called the paper tiger, because it doesn't mean a damn thing when it's on paper. It means what the production is whenever you're out there on the field. Now, I've seen what you're doing, Ross. You got a lot of great projects going. Talk to a little bit about the people, about your insurance aspect, and then as soon as you get done with that, I love what you're doing with the young youth here in the Lockhart community. I've taken on a certain mantle with Recon Athlete. We'll get into that later, but talk a little bit about your business, and I want to get to some exposure just so we can kind of spread that word for the community.
Yeah, so well, I'll just kind of it's like a bookend as far as with my fitness journey and what I do there, and then what I do now with insurance. So, like I said, it's like a bookend. So I'll start, of course, in 2000. I've always kind of done something fitness wise. I was a 2-sport collegiate athlete. And then after that, I always had a little side hustle of personal training, CrossFit training, and so forth. Well, I kind of went through a big lull in my life around 2013. Just couldn't seem to come out of it. I was working. I was like, I was making good money for, in 2013. It just seemed like everything in my whole life came crashing down, and I moved back home. By 2014, I was living in my mom's. Went through a divorce. My father passed away. Couldn't find a real job. I had a friend whose family gave me a job, making a little bit, but it just, wasn't enough. Wound up working a call center. I'm a man with a college degree. I was making, almost $100,000 just the year before, and yeah, man, I hit a low point in my life. And so I actually, I went out to do a workout with a buddy of mine one April out the high school football fields, and he was like throwing up. By the end of it, he was throwing up.
Wow.
And we're sitting there, and he's just like, "Bro, like, why don't you like do this? Like, why don't you do this?"
Like
I
full
was like, "What do you mean
time?
do this?" He's like, "Dude, like, why don't you get people together and start working out?" So, man, I just took a dive. I quit my job. You know, I mean, I wasn't even, it wasn't a lot to talk about anyways, but of course, you know, it's money is money, right? And so I said, man, I quit my job, and I started doing my ball strength fitness was what I started off with, man.
Yeah.
And it was a boot camp style. And I just started off by saying, hey, come and try me out. And then about 2, 3 weeks later, I said, well, man, you know what? Just give me some donations. And those donations were pretty good donations, man. But people were showing up. You know, I put myself on social media. People were showing up, and it got to the point to where I couldn't keep in track of those donations. So I just said, you know what? Let me just give you a flat rate. And I started coaching over there at the library downtown. I was doing personal sessions all day long. I was grinding, man. I was doing sessions at 5:30, 6 a.m. I was doing two groups in the evening.
Hell yeah.
You know, then of course I got into teaching and stuff like that. And, you know, that's when I kind of, you know, I fell in love with the kids on that end. Then I got into insurance around 2018. So I have 4 years of doing ball strength. I went ahead and just closed shop. I said, you know what? I'm about to move into a new industry. I actually applied in Lockhart for 3 different uh, physical education positions. Of course, that would be also had some coaching in it. I set up peer coaching programs for troubled youth at this previous school I was at. I'm from Lockhart. I thought that was going to be a shoe in.
Yeah.
And I guess the powers that be thought differently. You know, I think it's their loss. I talked to a few people that are some leadership positions yesterday. This story kind of came out, and they also said the same thing. That's, you know, that's a loss of the community on that aspect. But
So people
God has
know
a plan.
that story that you just
I'm
told?
sorry.
People know that story you just told previously?
But yeah, so I'm part of it. I'm part of a Chamber of Commerce leadership program in Lockhart right
Okay.
now. It's a year-long program, and we were in a leadership class yesterday, and I started talking about what I had done in Elgin, and then they asked how come I didn't stay in teaching. I kind of pretty much told them, you know, my thing was I was being recruited to do insurance and sales, and that was a big background of mine was sales, and I was being recruited to do that. And then I said, well, you know what? If I don't get this position in my hometown, sure, I'll give it a shot. And like I said, I had 3 positions open. Like I said, the decision maker, she didn't think I was a fit. She's no longer in Lockhart. I would have still been here. Like I said, it's the loss of them. And even those leaders in our community said, you know, it's a loss of the school district. Now, granted, do I think I could have had a position by now? I totally think so. But, you know, like I said, God has a plan. I went into insurance. I stopped Ball Street Fitness, and just wanted to focus on that new aspect of my life for the next few years. And I think I've been doing pretty well so as far as building my business on that end.
So how did you get into like with the war room? Like what was the transition? What was the motivation to kind of get back into like that private training?
Man, I had a few people hit me up throughout the past few years, hit me up to do some one-on-ones, and you know, I was pretty diligent. I was very hesitant in doing that. Then I started having people say, man, we really miss you. I'll be really honest, man. Once COVID started, I didn't work out myself for a year and a half. You know, I was really, man, I'll be honest, dude. I've always kind of put, you know, health and fitness in the forefront, but I was like, you know, I really want to be successful with what I'm doing here. And this was the first time I literally put my health on the back burner. Now, so I started to kind of tell that based on my weight gain. I was having a lot of indigestion issues. So I know, so COVID was a blessing in that aspect. It slowed my life down. I started actually doing better as far as insurance goes, and establish myself in the community because I could no longer go to the office in Austin.
Right.
So I was just doing more footwork here in the community in the rural areas around the Austin area. And anyways, man, I just said, you know what? I started getting itching for it. And I was like, I really miss the camaraderie. I miss people, just being in there. There's a different type of life around me. So I got with a old fraternity brother of mine that does that. He takes care of some of my finances and my taxes.
Okay.
And I said, hey man, we started running some things by, and he's not a fitness guy, but he's just a very smart person as far as how to brand. And so I was like, I don't want to be ball strength anymore. I want to rebrand. I want to bring something new. Well, as a few of y'all probably see, I mean, if whoever watched it, but I know I've definitely held my tongue on the political realm for the past few years because of my business. But you definitely know I'm very outspoken, and I have very, I'm very, very, I guess, let me see, very opinionated on my politics and my way of life, and so, but I'm always welcome to new ideas. I love having dialogue. That's my thing. I love having dialogue as long as it doesn't get carried away and doesn't get threatening or doesn't get, outside of what we're talking about. Anyways, that's where the war room almost came from. So COVID has brought, based on what I like about politics, football, and we all know, I mean, for most of us that follow football regularly, we know what happens every year. It's called a draft. And of course, I just became more spiritual again, started praying on daily, started meditating. And I was like, I was talking to my fraternity brother and I was like, man, should we do this? Should we do this? And I'm just laying on the couch. And then all of a sudden, war room just pops in my head. And I was like, you know what, man, this hits me personally on so many aspects of my life. Once again, a passion for a sport like football. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you and many other people that follow football, what happens almost to every team, they have a war room that they go and draft and they can negotiate.
For sure.
Politics, that's just something I fell in love with growing. When I was in college, I didn't even think about it. But, every president and his administration, they walk into a war room, right? And
making them big decisions.
Making the big decisions. A lot of times, I mean, I'm pretty sure we get 10% of what they talk about in that room. And then, of course, on a spiritual aspect, man, you have the war room, which is pretty much a little area that people go to pray in. And that room is strictly for those that pray in. So that was part of it, man. Another part of it was once I got back into getting my health together, I don't know if you've seen some of my ads and something. I always talk about bring your ego. I don't know if you've noticed that. I said, bring your ego in here.
You said you want people to take their ego into the war room?
Into the war room.
Okay. All right. I'm going to follow this.
This is something. What's up?
I'm going to follow this. I'm going to follow you down this road. Let me hear this.
All right. Yeah. So, man, you know what, man? I am a huge Mike Tyson fan. Okay. I am a huge Mike Tyson fan.
Kid Dynamite.
I'm sorry, my wife was trying to. I'm a huge Mike Tyson fan, just based on how the man grew up. But if you sit down and listen to the man, his boxing IQ is insane. Also, his awareness of himself is insane. But if you listen to one of the things he talks about ego. And he got to the point in his life where he said he can't even talk about boxing because it brought out something in him. It's his ego. And when he meant his ego, that's what brought out all of his threatening presence, all of his, us Hispanics call machismo.
Yeah,
he said, I didn't like the person I was when, or the person I am. Now, granted, we've seen recently, he's brought his ego back and even said it, my ego's come back, and he even discusses, it looks like he has control of it,
mm-hmm.
Based on what he did. And I think all of that also just goes based on the people that you put yourself around. Anyways, man, what I started doing is I'd be in my own home gym and I'd be working out, and all of a sudden, man, I would just go into a trance when I'd work out, man. I know I'm not doing this special, bro. I'm not lifting a bunch of weight. I'm not doing backflips, but I had, getting away from everyday life. I had to bring my ego, and man, all of a sudden I was like, man, I'm like GOW, and that's what I put down, on my Instagram. I have and it's GOW, man, God of War, and from that, all those things that come together. I was like, the war room. Bring your ego into, you know, if you're spiritual, if you're an athlete going into something or somebody running it, if you're political, you have that. But man, you want to go in there and you want to be somebody different for an hour, come into the war room. Bring your ego, be somebody different than you've been, release the stress. If you want to and that's who you are. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's your ego looking back at you. And then that's where that came from. And it's a different type of, the reason why I rebranded to the war room is because I want a different type of mentality to come into my place. I want you to come in with a chip on your shoulder. You know, I want you to come in saying, I've got to relieve something, you know, and I'm a different coach, man, too. I mean, you know, as far as that goes, I want to have a different type of personality. I'm stern. I want them to respect the weight, because if they don't respect the weight, they don't respect themselves. And if they don't respect themselves, they're going to hurt themselves.
You know,
so,
a lot of times, I was like, a lot of times, like everything you're talking about, like right now, I'm hearing Coach Elliott, I'm hearing Coach Page whenever we were in high school. And it's just like the same thing. For those teachers who taught us, you and I, it's honorable and good to see that you have become a teacher. And like, if people don't know about what coaching is, or you're a teacher before you're anything, and because you need to make sure that you can pass on the information in a digestible way to whoever you are, whoever's your pupil. And so just to hear what you're saying, you know, when we were in school together and playing in our playing days, it's cool to see how you're passing that information down to the youth today. I was going to ask you real quick, why did the young people come to you? Because I've seen you at the Lockhart Relays. I've seen you in your advertisement with the 7th grader crew, getting in there early, which is a fantastic thing to do. I'm a very big proponent of starting these individuals early and getting into competitive training in the 7th grade years. And so how did that come to fruition for that crew and for them to come to you directly?
I'm going to say God's will. You know, if you look back, you start taking steps back, and then all of a sudden you kind of see where things kind of come ahead. You're like, oh, that's how it happened. Mm-hmm. You know, so once again, I'm going back to when I had interviewed as a PE teacher here and wanted to coach. I had developed a peer coaching program for troubled youth in one of the schools I taught at. And it wasn't only just for troubled youth, it was also a reward program for those kids that did what they're supposed to do. And I would bring them in during their class time, and they would help me coach the younger children in the school. Now, with that being said, they had to maintain a good curriculum and be able to uphold the behavior standards. And if they didn't, they were either not allowed to coach anymore, or they had to run and do punishments I had for them on a physical education aspect, and they were more than happy to do that. And I wanted to bring that to Lockhart, and I brought that up, and just wasn't meant to be at the time. And then so last fall, last spring of 2019.
Okay.
I was approached by a guy that we grew up with, and Josh Williams. And then he introduced me to Joe Rollins, which was him and a gentleman named Brandon Tippy, and Josh Williams, for other people, were developing a new youth football league in Lockhart called Lockhart Fighting Lions, or LFL. And so they asked if I wanted to coach with it, and I did. I said, yeah, sure. And I brought on my twin brother as well. He was my offensive coordinator, and I was a head coach and defensive coordinator for the 6th grade team. And it was a tough year. Unfortunately, the league didn't last, or the league, you know, the organization in Lockhart didn't last. But that one season, but I tell you what, man, we were playing kids. I mean, you know, we actually followed the rules of the UIL, didn't bring in those athletes, but, you know, junior high kids, but that was fine because it helped these kids. Our kids were playing kids a year, 2 years older than them. Mm-hmm. And if you have seen the 7th graders play this year, these boys we coached, man, they were doing it on the football field, the guys their age finally. Anyways, what happened, man, as I started putting that stuff out for anybody and everybody. Hey, you probably saw my teasers, right?
Yeah, man. We saw
Ball
the
strength,
ads. We did.
ball strength is no more. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Boom. War Room came. All of a sudden, what are the prices? People are like, what are the prices? What is this? That's coming. It's just, I try to put these little carrots out there. And like I said, it's for anybody and everybody. And these kids, parents were like, hey, we like what you did with our kids in the LFL. And they start reaching out to me. And it seems like every week has grown a little bit. I have some background in coaching. I coached a cousin of mine that was an amazing varsity player this year, his first senior year. He's been great for a few years. I coached a few other, powerlifters. She went to state a few years ago. And so doing this is fine, but yeah, I mean, that was one thing I wanted to do when I interviewed. Was they had for Lockhart was they said, do you want to go and be a PE coach at the junior high school level? And I said, no, I'd rather stay at the elementary level. And they asked me why. And I said, well, with the high rate of single mother households or single parent households in today's world, I want to be that positive, male role model. And I could be able to, grab them in elementary and be able to, those kids on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid on the fence, Paul, and I don't, there's been very few people I've talked to about me, but I mean, I put it out here on this podcast. I mean, me and my brother are both arrested a few times before. We're 13 years old. One of them was for assault. My brother was on probation for a while. We could have gone another way very easily. As my mom worked 2 jobs at a time. My father was paralyzed. So we did a lot of growing up on our own. We walked the streets a lot. Luckily, there were people that cared about us and showed us some tough love, but they showed us love.
Right.
And so, anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought, but
no, you're talking about how that
pretty much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, pretty much. I just kind of brought that to what I did or what I'm doing, and that helps me, I think, with a lot of this. But I want to catch these kids at elementary and say, if you're on that fence, I was on that fence, man. I had coaches that cared about me, I had people that cared about me, and I was able to say, I want to be an athlete. And I knew how to get away from certain people to do that. And so I was like, and then, like I said, it was powers to be, what meant to be, man. But you know what? Doing something like this is another way to do it, And like I said, something whispered to me to come in, start the war room. These kids are great. 7th graders. I mean, they're, they still hate Coach Ross. And then they have the youthfulness about them, man. It's really cool just watching them grow together. I have another kid, he's a sophomore right now, and he wants to get back into football. He played football for a few years, got out, wants to get back into it.
Good.
And it's great watching different kids from different age groups interact with each other. You don't see that a lot nowadays. When we were growing up, bro, we could go to everybody's house and we knew everybody's, older sisters, older brothers, younger sisters, younger brothers. If you played football, you knew the classes 6 years ahead and 6 years behind you back in the day. You don't have that anymore. So I think right here is, maybe a chance for me to get to have people start to come together kind of, in any way like it used to be. But man, there's just something in me, man. I just can't stay away from it. I like being around. I like coaching. I like teaching. I like being around people in that aspect, trying to pass my positivity on. And like I said, man, if it's not something that just happened. If you start to maybe backtrack, you start seeing how those things kind of came together. That's how I got with the youth, man. They just show, let's go to this guy. They saw what I could do as far as coaching on a youth level, and I grew up with a lot of their fathers, and it kind of just goes from there.
Well, props to you, man, for really being like literally boots on the ground to kind of save. You're really going to save a couple of these young people moving forward with just introducing them to a physical activity. But I want to say thank you very much for the time tonight. It's really been enlightening, and it's been very grateful to have you tonight. But this is one thing, Ross, I ask all of my guests, and I really want them to be honest about this. But before we do that, how can people find the War Room, and how can they find you to go to get your services?
Yeah, basically look for me on Facebook. Facebook, Ross Alexander. I have another Facebook, R.E. Alexander. Find me on either of those. DM me. You could call me. I mean, I'm gonna put my phone number out right now, 512-659, I'm sorry, 512-659-1141. Call me. I mean, I use that for my insurance. I use that for the war room. A lot of times, heck, man, I'm in a leadership class for a Chamber of Commerce, and I was talking to one of my classmates about getting her son over there. So, you call me that way. You could email me at ross.e.alexander@gmail.com. You could find me on Instagram at Boss Strength. I haven't changed it yet.
Which we do have that right now underneath your name. We wanted to let you know that if you can't see that, we have some of your stuff mocked up so people can know, number one, who you are, number two, what you do, and where they can find you on socials. But I'm very grateful for all that. Go ahead, get with Ross Alexander if you have a student athlete, and you train boys and girls. Is that right?
I train boys and girls, and I train, man, I've trained from 10-year-olds to 90-year-olds, man. I'm not saying that to say like I have the know-how, I have the experience. I mean, guys, I've been doing this since I was 20 years old. I'm 38 now. I have a 2-sport collegiate athlete. I've trained under some of the best people. Charles Alston, Olympic high jumper. Bobby Warren owns a gym in San Marcos, and he's trained, anywhere from actors that are athletes to Olympic athletes. Mark Ripito was the consultant for CrossFit weightlifting. So whatever you learn in CrossFit as far as weightlifting or what they're trying to teach you, that's from Mark Ripito. He has a gym over in Wichita Falls called Wichita Falls Athletic Club. I trained over there for a few months. I've been under a great tutelage of people, and I've taken all that as I can and just learned. And I'm a very good observer. So I'll watch and I'll learn. I ask a lot of questions, and that's all I ask from people that I train. And I'll be honest, man, it doesn't mean you have to have a certification. You have a certification. You could use big words. I'll be honest, bro, I've forgotten most of the big words I've learned because nobody cares to know about those, right? I want to talk to you layman's. All that matters is you do what I show you, and you do it properly, and you do it functionally. I want to help save you, and I want to help you be the best you can as far as your body goes. And one of the biggest things that people say, I can't do this because I have a bad knees or my lower back. I said, I got you. Let me help you out. Let me tell you why your knees hurt. Let me tell you why your back's hurt. Let me tell you all this stuff to straighten that up. So I have hundreds of stories as far as people I have helped and little testimonies, but it's one of those things that experience this thing. It's a passion that you have, and you just kind of go for it. And hopefully one day I can help this grow even more. And I can say, well, hey, I was the founder of this, or I started this here, or it might be one of those things. I might be 60 years old and have a bunch of pictures. I did this for a few years back when I was younger.
Excellent. Ross Alexander, before I know we just led into that. What's one thing you want to tell the world? You have the world platform. What's one thing you want to tell them?
In today's environment, you're more than welcome to have your own opinion and have your own philosophy, and you do that as long as you respect others. That's what I got to say to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you need insurance, if you need to get in shape, if you need to have a friend in the community, get with Mr. Ross Alexander. Everybody, Ross, thanks for your time, bud. We will get with you soon again. Hey, will you be interested in joining? We're going to have a NFL draft party. Would you be willing to come back on Zoom and be live whenever Philadelphia makes their pick and get your reaction?
Oh, yeah. That'd be fun. That'd be real fun. Let's do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ross Alexander, everybody. Ross, thank you, bud.
Thank you. Take care.
Hey, man, you too, bud.
All right.